Hello and welcome back to another video from Wheels by Fleming of San Jose, California, USA, home of hand-built basic and replacement alloy bicycle wheels and custom builds. This is another errata addendum video to my video series on the Kowa spoke cutter. This particular video is about the importance of attention to detail. Attention to detail is very important when working with spoke cutters and spoke threaders like this one, the Kowa spoke cutter, or the Philwood spoke cutter, or the Morozumi spoke cutter. Attention to detail is very important. The same also goes for the spokes that you use. Branded spokes, non-branded spokes. Paying attention to detail is very important. I'm going to give 3 examples of this. Here's the first one. About 3 months ago, I had to reset my Kowa spoke cutter. Set it back basically to 0 on the micro adjuster. Using what I typically do, used DT Swiss 2.00 millimeter diameter spokes, I went through the process of incrementing the die spacing or pressure using the micro adjuster until I got to about 2.24 millimeter diameter. Threads look great under a magnifying glass, and they look great under the digital caliper, so I grabbed a nipple from this bin over here to test the threads. And the nipple was binding a little bit, especially on the last 2 threads. I had to force the nipple a little bit to get the spoke to pop to about a millimeter, millimeter and a half. So I was scratching my head like, okay, what's going on here? Well, maybe I should do this again. So I did. I reset the machine again. Took that DT Swiss 2.00 millimeter diameter spoke, ran it through over and over while adjusting the micro adjuster, got back to 2.24 millimeter, checked the threads under the magnifying glass, checked the digital caliper, everything looked good. I grabbed the nipple from this bin again, went to test the threads, and I was not happy with it. There was binding again. So I started all over, reset the machine again, and this time while I'm going through the process all over again, my brain keeps looking at that bin full of nipples. And I'm wondering, why does my brain keep looking at that bin of nipples while I'm resetting my machine again? And then I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. Homer Simpson moment. No. I was being really stupid. What was the problem? I'm using a 2.00 millimeter diameter spoke, DT Swiss, to reset my machine. And then what am I testing my final threads with? I'm testing with CN spoke nipples. Nipples that come with spokes where the diameter is 1.98 millimeters. Ding, 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 ding. Went out to my garage, grabbed some DT Swiss nipples, took the spoke I just rolled and threaded, put that DT Swiss nipple on, perfect. Went on smooth as butter, straight to the point where the spoke is sticking through the head of the nipple by about a millimeter, millimeter and a half. That whole time I was resetting the machine 3 times over, I was blaming the machine when actually the blame is on me. I was using the wrong nipples to test my threads with. Attention to detail is important. When you set up your Kowa spoke cutter, or Philwood, or Morozumi for 2.00 millimeter diameter spoke threading, make sure you test with nipples intended for the same, DT Swiss, Supreme, or the nipples that came with those particular spokes. That's lesson number 1. Now here's the next one. This one's more about spokes and using a tension meter. This wheel you see right here is a rebuild I just did 2 days ago. This is from a great customer, a repeat customer. I've probably done a dozen wheels for him over the last 5 or 6 years. This is a rebuild. He had an accident that required a new rim, and he decided to go with a new hub while at it and use some leftover spokes from a DT Swiss box. A box that says 2.0, 1.8, 2.0. These are double butted 2.0, 1.8, 2.0, 14, 15, 14. I trust DT Swiss, one of my favorite companies. So I went ahead and grabbed the spokes, laced up the wheel, and started building the wheel. When I got about halfway through the tensioning process, something didn't seem right. I was like, wow, these spokes got up the tension really quick. for 2.0, 1.8, 2.0 spoke. Okay. Doesn't feel right either. I'm scratching my head like, well, this feels different. So my brain said, well, check the spokes. So I did. I grabbed the Park Tool gauge checker, and when I put it here, and here at the hub side, it said 14 gauge. When I put the Park Tool gauge checker at the midspan of the spoke, it said 15 gauge, or 1.8. And then I decided, okay, what happens when I check with a digital caliper? So I took my digital caliper, checked the thick end on both sides. They read 2.00 millimeter diameter. So far, so good. But when I checked the midspan of each of these spokes, they said 1.75, 1.76 millimeter diameter. Ding, 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 ding. That's why they felt different. DT Swiss is a wonderful company. I've been using them since 1984. I trust them. Awesome company, great products, good at quality control, very consistent, but understand something. Even DT Swiss has a bad day. Even Supreme has a bad day. They too make mistakes, and sometimes they make it past the factory floor into a box to the distributor, to the shop, to the customer. It does happen. Attention to detail says you need to check your spokes once in a while. DT Swiss, Supreme, other branded spokes, non-branded spokes, take out the digital caliper, check them once in a while. That will keep you out of trouble. In this case, I had to go to my Park Tool calibration chart. I had to look up a 1.8, 1.7, figure out a happy medium somewhere in the middle of that Park Tool chart, make an estimate, and then a tension on my meter according to that. And doing that allowed them to get this wheel done, and this wheel actually feels great. I think this wheel's not going to have any issues when it goes out the door. Customer's going to be happy. Attention to detail is important. Check your spokes once in a while, especially when something doesn't feel right. Final example. Here's the third example. This was maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. New customer shows up. He wants to build a wheel. He hands me a hub. He hands me a rim. He hands me a set of spokes and nipples. Great, fantastic. I got all I need to build a wheel. The spokes he handed me, they felt great. When I pulled out an individual spoke from the bundle he gave me, no brand marking, unbranded, source unknown. Felt nice and heavy as a supposed 14 gauge spoke. Just as heavy as a DT Swiss or Supreme. Thought, wow, these actually feel like they're nice spokes. And when I checked them with the Park Tool gauge checker, they said 14 gauge, or they're supposed to be 2.00 millimeter spokes. So far, so good, great. So I started processing those spokes through my spoke cutter, the Kowa spoke cutter. When they went through a little bit tight. There was a little bit of grindiness to it. I had to use a little more force to get them through, and I'm scratching my head like, what's going on with these spokes? Something's not right. Attention to detail is important. I said, you know what? Let's grab my digital caliper and let's measure these spokes. So I did. I took these spokes, several of them, and measured them. They were not 2.00 millimeter diameter spokes. Most of them that I measured were 2.02 millimeter diameter. There were a couple that were 2.03. In other words, their thickness, diameter-wise, was slightly larger than your 2.00 millimeter DT Swiss or Supreme spokes. I was basically taking spokes with a slightly larger diameter and forcing them through my Kowa spoke cutter, which was set up for 2.00 millimeter diameter. When I tested with the nipples that came with the spokes, they went on just fine. But here's the funny thing. Out of curiosity, I took some of my CN spoke nipples, which come with spokes that are 1.98 millimeter diameter, and they stuck a lot on these spokes. Attention to detail is important. When you're operating a spoke thread or spoke cutter like Kowa, filled with Morizumi, you're going to have spokes coming at you from all directions, right field, center field, left field. Some of them will be brand names that you trust. They're consistent, and you know that, but you got to check them once in a while. Some will be brand names where you have to check them more often, like CN Spoke, Wheelsmith, Pilar. And then sometimes you're going to have new spokes coming at you you've never seen before. You need to check those. Make sure you know what you're working with. And sometimes you're going to have non-branded spokes from unknown sources, China, Taiwan, Indonesia, Malaysia, somewhere in Europe. You never know where they come from. And before you use them, check the diameters on them. Make sure you know what you're working with before you process them through your Kowa spoke cutter, your Phillips spoke cutter, your more zooming spoke cutters. Attention to detail when spokes are coming at you from all different directions will help keep you out of trouble all the time. Attention to detail is important. I'm going to wrap this up very quickly. When you set up your Kowa spoke cutter, use DT Swiss, Supreme, or spoke that you know checks out as 2.00 millimeter diameter. Set it up for that, and when you test your threads, make sure you're using a nipple that comes with those DT Swiss or Supremes, or comes with that particular spoke, a nipple that is set up to be used with 2.0 millimeter diameter spokes. Every once in a while, check your spokes, especially when something doesn't feel right. Again, DT Swiss and Supreme, even they make mistakes. Sometimes a set of spokes goes out that are not gauged properly. Use a digital caliper to do so. And remember, spokes are coming at you from all different directions. Some of them will be new, some will be new unknown brands. And if you want to know what you're working with, always check their diameters before you put them through your machine. That will keep you out of trouble. And that is all for this video. I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching.